Okay, but Michael just brought up transitioning. How do we transition? And meaning that how do we know when we have physically deteriorated to the point where we have to start making and looking at other decisions, and now we're clearly focused and able to make those choices with a little better attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a point where you have to come to some level of acceptance that things are not the way that they were, and they're not going to ever return to the way that they were. And we see people in denial about that process because that's a normal experience
Yes,
for someone to have is to go into denial because they have always been healthy. They've always been bounced back. They've always, every time that they've gone in for an issue at the hospital, they've come out and have been okay.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that there's a point in time where you don't.
Well, but also you have to look at each time you have an event, you've lost something. You may not accept it because somebody's standing there saying, well, we can really fix it. I mean, don't worry about that. Or we'll put you in rehab and they're going to get you back. Well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes you don't have the capacity or the physical strength to be able to transition back as far as you would like to.
Yeah. One of the things that you said that kind of sparked for me is that I think that sometimes healthcare providers, and I'll just really put it where it needs to be, is with physicians.
Mm-hmm.
Physicians will send you to rehab when everybody and their mama know you are not going to do very well there.
No, exactly.
In all honesty, sometimes what we're doing is we're just buying time.
Mm-hmm.
We're buying time till you stabilize so that we can kind of decide which direction that you're going.
Well, and also there's a dollar and cents point to that too,
Mm-hmm.
Michael. As long as they keep treating you, insurance and whatnot stay in place for you,
Mm-hmm.
which also can be a very, very important process and decision to be willing to, maybe temporarily do something else.
I used to tell people, you need to exploit each level of care the best way that you can. Certainly, if you have a justifiable reason for going into skilled nursing, go into skilled nursing and allow them to work with you, from a physical therapy standpoint and a rehab standpoint, and to see if they can improve some of your strength and your functionality.
Absolutely.
Because it will determine where you go from there.
Yes.
So it's not always a bad thing to be in denial.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's healthy.
Yeah, very.
And having the support of your physician is going to be important. But there's a point where we all look and we think, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we continuing to think that the person is going to bounce back when they haven't the last 3 times that they've been in this situation?
And Michael and I, it is so critical for the working medical professional to understand when that point happens and be willing to address each situation a little differently than they had in the past. I'm hoping that the physicians and the nurses and the case managers, social workers understand that at some point they have to start changing their language for the benefit of the patient and more importantly, sometimes the patient's family.
Yeah. Many years ago, actually in 1997, there was a requirement that in the discharge planning process, that social workers and healthcare workers were required to tell people of various resources that were available to them. And so we're talking a long time ago. So yes. Hospice was one of those things that was always suggested that that's something that you needed to tell people that might be appropriate for it, that that's the service that's available to them. That's not something that's real easy for people to say, gosh, I think it's time for you to go to hospice, unless you've been doing the work up to that point. And so if you've not been doing the work,
it's
then
a shock.
You are going to be shocked. Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. And you're going to be pissed.
Yes.
So shocked and pissed. And it's not unusual for you to take that out on the persons that have been caring for you.
Well, you no longer trust. That's the key point to that, Michael, is that suddenly you become apprehensive about the people you're working with.
Because you realize they've not been honest.
They haven't been honest.
And that's hard. because
Very.
you really want to trust what they have to share with you, and that you want to believe
Right.
that what they're telling you is going to occur.
Uh-huh.
We're going to go here, then we're going to go there, and then we're going to go back home, and we'll live happily ever after. And
And in the
sometimes-
meantime, how am I going to get you to the doctor's office?
yeah, or to the toilet.
Or to the toilet. Yes.
I realized that that's something that comes up for people as kind of like the line of demarcation as to when they start to make those decisions, when they can no longer get to the toilet on their own.
Right.
That is an awareness that they have lost the physical ability to do that activity of daily living.
Yeah.
And self-care. And when you can't do that, surprise.
I always love the stories of the family who are constantly having to call 911 to pick grandma or papa or their loved one up off the floor because they just physically can't. They're at home and they're look like they're doing great, and then they fall.
Right.
And they continue to repeat and repeat and repeat till finally the fire department and the paramedics go,
Right.
wait a minute.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but you'll start getting bills.
Oh, yes. yes.
You know, once you've done it, I think there's a couple of grace periods.
Yeah, there is.
And there may be places where you can have a subscription, you know, for 911.
Absolutely.
But what happens with 911 is they send everybody.
Uh-huh.
They send the paramedics, they send the fire truck, they send the sheriff's department. I mean, you get the grand parade of people coming into your home
Right.
to get grandma off the floor.
Yeah.
What we recognize is that the falls are really the beginning of the end.
Uh-huh.
So breaking a hip, hurting your head or something like that,
Right. Breaking an arm,
yeah,
breaking a hip.
you are going to be in the hospital and you're probably not going to get better.
Yes.
It's very, very difficult to recover. You know,
Mhm.
once you're above a certain age, it's very difficult to have the surgery done because you may not be a surgical candidate.
Correct.
The reality is that there are going to be things that are no longer going to be offered to you.
Yes.
And
And
that's-
it's amazing to me how many people at that point still, I don't want to use the word surrender because that's kind of a bad term, but they don't want to accept where they are. And it's not that you have to totally do it. It's just you have to shift your expectations of yourself and what you're capable of doing. You can't, because you're going to really, really, really get hurt. That's the bottom line. The ad about, with the beeper.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
I've fallen
Yeah.
and I can't get up.
And the ads are actually pretty good.
Oh, they're excellent.
The ones now, they have the person falling in the kitchen or somewhere and it getting dark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that shows the passage of time and that you are laying on the floor slowly dying, but not completely.
Or
you
in
know.
the bathtub. Oh, that's always
And
fun.
so those are the kind of things, when those things start to happen, that may be the early warning system that you're
Mhm.
looking for in terms of, is it time?
Right.
Is it time to bring in care? Is it time to change the focus of the care? Is it time to move?
Right.
So all of those things, it's difficult to do alone, especially if you've not prepared. Sometimes the initial conversation that you have with a family member is like, this is the first they're hearing of it too. So it,
Yeah, that's the honesty again, Michael.
yeah,
The patient keeping secrets.
yeah, yeah.
we
yeah,
can get into that.
We know
one.
that. We know that.
Yeah.
People.
It's interesting because I have a gentleman I'm working with, and I'm aware that rationally and intellectually, all of the words are there, and then every once in a while, you get the underbelly of what they really want, and 9 times out of 10, they want to go back to exactly where they came from. And it's always destructive. So even if they can go back to that environment or that situation, they've got to emotionally be able to rework it for themselves so that they're not putting themselves in danger.
Mhm.
But it's the underbelly, it's the little comments that get made that really is the truth of how they're feeling about their situation.
Now, one of
You
the
have
things
to
that you,
listen for
one
it.
of the things that I just thought of while you were talking is that this person, I know who you're talking about.
Mhm.
This person is somebody that you're involved in their life and you communicate on a regular basis. But how many people are out there who have no one?
Right.
And things are just done to them. And that's the other scary part about doing this process alone.
Mhm.
Now, you can have people in your life, people living with you that don't even know that things are changing, things are going on.
Yes.
And that's something that we're pointing out because it happens to everybody.
Mhm.
There's a point where things shift and something different needs to take place. Now, you've been working with him for a long time, and I know that you've been slowly changing the language and introducing different things so that
Right.
he's more prepared for what you're going to say.
Yeah.
He also has a relationship with you that is honest and that he knows you're never going to withhold something. In fact, he wishes you would withhold things.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure
it's
he
like,
does.
damn it, here she is again. It's like, what is she going to tell me now?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
But the fact is that your level of honesty has helped him begin to understand what he needs to do next.
Yes.
Because there's always something that someone needs to do next.
Next.
And
we do this, folks, until we die. This is a process that is ongoing, gradual. Most people wish that they could just go to bed and never wake up.
well,
But they don't.
Yeah, my mother announced a little while back that she said, "I want to die just like your father.
Whoops.
I want to die just like your father. He died in his sleep. In the middle of the night, was unwitnessed. He was dead as a doornail." And my mother says, "That's what I want." And I said to her without any hesitation, I said, "Well, you're not going to get that."
Right.
And she said, "Well, why? I want that." And I said, "Well, you need to start smoking. You need to start drinking. You need to start going and having Krispy Kreme donuts every day. And in about 20 years, you will have a problem that will take your life."
Right.
I said, because maybe.
Because
Exactly.
the doctors are going to give you all the appropriate medication to keep that from happening.
And so she says to me, "All right, Smarty Pants, how am I going to die?" And I said to her, "Simple. You are going to die by the dwindles."
Dwindles.
The dwindles. We'll talk about the dwindles in another session.
Right.
But the dwindles is what's going to take my mother
Yeah.
probably maybe 25 years from now. I know she's watching this, so she's probably thinking, "Damn it, I hate when he says that." But one of the things that people really have to be prepared for is life under altered circumstances, perhaps for an extended period of time. Now, that period of time, when I say an extended period of time, could be weeks, months, years.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready for that. And most people are not.
No.
This may be the first time you're hearing of it.
Yeah.
You may have thought of this stuff, but it's like, boy, those two people, they're so smart. They know these things. And we're really not that smart. We've just been paying attention.
We very, very much so.
And we want you to pay attention too.
Yes, please.